Okay, first question. Is the audio good? Is the audio good? Let me know if the audio is working. Yes. Okay. Whew. I forgot to test. I have been testing it, and I forgot to test it. The host is already screwed up once, and the show has only just begun. Thank you, Jimmy Steele, Ryan, and the Evil Badger, Ryan, William, Matt Neeson. We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this college football rebel outpost with a donation. Hit the $ where you make a comment, and I'll get you a super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody, and I mean everybody, even the Mountaineers and the Tar Heels and the Hoosiers. Holy smokes. Selection Sunday. This is a college football YouTube channel, but we are going to touch upon it just a little bit. What happened yesterday? Holy smokes. Wow. And I would say this is unprecedented. In the basketball screw job. We went through the football screw job of Florida State. This was a screw job. Holy smokes. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. The title of this show is something I did not think I would be putting out there today, right? No way did I believe that this was going to be the title screen of our live show. No way, no how, it ain't going to happen. Colorado versus the Syracuse Orange in a spring football game or some type of scrimmage for a couple of days. Could this actually happen? Now, for this to happen, there's going to have to be some rule change. The rule change that for this to allow to be, you can't even really do this right now, to be honest with you. But could this bring about quick and sudden change? Is there a new era of college football happening in the spring? Could we be seeing some spring practices like the NFL, right? There's two different franchises practicing against each other that often lead to fights on the field. I remember the Minnesota Vikings always practice, not always, a lot of times, most years, back in the day, they practiced against the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, the Kansas City Chiefs have gone on to win a bunch of Super Bowls, and my Minnesota Vikings have gone on to win a bunch of, well, they've gone on to bring in Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, we're not talking NFL. We are not talking NFL. We're talking college football. This could bring on a new era, do you think? Possibly. If they could pull it off for April 17th, I believe that was the date that Deion Sanders was thinking about. Do you think that would spur interest? Do you think we would get it next year? Now remember, a lot of coaches have canceled spring football this year. A few of them last year. Canceled spring football because they don't want anybody to see what's going on. Top secret. We don't want any poachers. We don't want you to learn our playbook. We don't want you to see our true freshman. We don't want you to see our backup center who he's developing, baby. We don't want anybody to see it. We don't want any poaching. Last year we had Lane Kiffin, PJ Fleck, Mike Gundy canceling spring football game. This year you got Matt Rule and a whole bunch of others. You've got Mike Norvell today. I think it was today. Maybe it was yesterday. Mike Norvell talking about, I think there's only going to be one spring practice for the press and possibly the public. I don't quite remember what I read, but Mike Norvell is keeping everything on the down low. Secret, cloak and dagger. Don't want anybody to know what your team is looking like. Your new offensive plays, your new defensive plays. So it's hard for me to get behind the wheel and say, yeah, everything's going more secret. People are canceling the spring football game. Wait a second. The new era of spring football where one team will play against another team. Could it happen? It might. It might. It's the great unknown. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your phone calls. It's a fascinating subject. A spring football game, or maybe not even a spring football game. A couple of days of practices. And maybe you let the press in, but you don't let the public in. Or maybe you let the public in. Maybe you let your donors in to watch the spring practices between the Buffaloes and the Orange. Maybe this year they do it in Boulder, Colorado. Next year they do it in Syracuse, New York. A home and away spring practices. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, guys. There's a reason why the NFL has done this for a long time, because the players get tired of hitting each other, the same guys over and over again, and it becomes difficult to evaluate. If you don't have a very good slot receiver and he's going out there against your not very good slot cornerback, and maybe your slot receiver is dominating your number one slot cornerback, and you're saying, well, our slot receiver's doing pretty good, he's developing, and then you get into the spring practice, a spring football game against another opponent, and your slot receiver gets shut down. You say, whoa, we got more work to do. We may have to look at his backup. May have to look at that true freshman. Just one example. Do you believe the new era of spring football is going to come? Not so much this year, obviously, but next year. Do you think Sanders and Fran Brown can pull this off? A lot of you are going, what the hell is Greg even talking about? We are going to get to that story in the back of our monologue. First, I want to hit a couple things, a roll call. We got to do a roll call. LSU Tiger Ryan Brooks is in the house. Mr. Duck Jimmy Austin is here. Go Ute Steel Austin. Cyclone Matt Neeson. The Cornhuskers. Scave. And yes, Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina. There is no off season. Stormy Cyclone. Second on the clones. John Dry, Red Raiders. Red Raiders. Red Raiders. What am I going to do with the Red Raiders when I do my Big 12 way too early picks this week? I did the SEC last week. What am I going to do with the Red Raiders? What am I going to do with the quarterback, Red Baron Morton? What am I going to do with the transfer from UCF, the defensive tackle, Lee Hunter? What am I going to do with the Red Raiders? What am I going to do with the Baylor Bears? I got a lot of difficult decisions to make this week. We are doing our way too early Big 12 prediction order of finish for the 25 season. Pendergrass and Washington in the backfield. Sawyer Robertson, the quarterback, who lit it on fire last year when nobody thought he was going, nobody thought he would even be, well, I did not believe he was going to be QB1 by the end of the year. Over 62% completions, about 28 touchdowns, hardly any interceptions. Baylor won, I think, 8 games last year. What am I going to do with Baylor? What am I going to do with Texas Tech? What am I going to do with Rich Rod coming back to Morgantown? Not easy. Not easy at all. Big Ears Bo, Mr. Mountaineer. I knew Greg was going to be all over this. Caleb Ramirez is in the house. Mr. Buckeye Bo Weevil, Clemson 2025. There is some reports that you got a freshman running back there who might be ready. We'll talk about that when we get to the ACC way too early predictions order of finish. DLB is in the house. Bill G is here. NE is here. Who else? The Evil Badger, Ryan Willie is in the house. Thanks for coming on in, Ryan. Mr. Mountaineer, Daniel Gygax. Rob Allen, Clemson Tiger. Tim W. Tim W., you are the Colorado State guy, right? Tim W., Colorado State Rams, going to the dance. Mountain West Conference champions and the Minnesota Golden Gophers are trying to pick off your head coach, Nico Medved. We all know, well, all Minnesota, I think a lot of Colorado State Rams know that Nico Medved was looked upon the last time Minnesota had to hire a head coach for basketball. Nico Medved grew up in Minnesota, was a Golden Gopher in Minnesota, was an assistant coach at Minnesota. Is Nico about to come home? Or is Colorado State going to make him an offer he cannot refuse, like a lifetime basic contract in Fort Collins, Colorado? Let me know what you're thinking, Tim. Let me know what you're thinking. Big Gun Shop is in the house. Mayor McCheese is here. CFB Plus, it was highway robbery. Mayor McCheese said West Virginia got hosed. Bubba got his bonus. The Observer is in the house. Larry the GM, happy St. Patrick's Day. Greg, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. March 17th. Bob Swanger is in the house. Cranky Tiger, great day for PATC. Every day is a great day for PATC. Every day. Every day that I wake up and I get another day to live. Another day for enjoying everything that our Creator has given us. It is a fantastic day. Nitwit is in the house. Penn State and Pitt spring game. Well, that's the question I'm going to ask. When we get to that story, I'm going to ask you all, who would you want to play in your spring football game? What other program would you want to play in your practices or a spring football game? A scrimmage. Now, Penn State and Pitt might get a little violent, right? Those guys know each other too. I don't know. I don't think that would be a good idea. But then again, I don't know if you want to fly across the country, right? The Colorado Syracuse thing, interesting. What program would you want your team to play in a spring football practice, scrimmage, or game if this thing gets a rolling in the years ahead? Go Black 45 is in the house. R Webb is here. Rock and Rant, we got a lot to talk about. Don't go on too long. Kirby Smart, The Observer, toughness. If you're here, you got it. And if you're here, you will show it. James Davis is in the house. Nick Kelso is here. Morris Simmons. We'd be disappointed and do what we can to keep him, but it's hard beat going home. Our assistant coach would likely get the elevation. Tim W., Colorado State Rams, the Rambling Rams. Stormy Cyclone. Stormy Cyclone. Right now, West Virginia would like a spring game with North Carolina. Okay, John Dry is here. Nick Kelso. Okay, let me get to the quick super chats here. Very kind super chats. Ryan Willie. In my opinion, North Carolina is 100% going to the SEC. The selection committee putting 14 SEC teams in was worse than the Montreal Screwjob in the WWE. Yeah, I think it was pretty bad. Now, I'm gonna start this show talking about that. But thank you, Ryan Willie, for the super chat. I do appreciate it. I'm gonna say something here. I'm gonna get everybody upset with me during this live show. I don't blame Bubba Cunningham. Now, I blame the system in which an athletic director is the chairman of the selection committee, whatever his title is. That is absolutely ridiculous. They got to get away from that. I know he recuses himself when they talk about North Carolina, but they talk about the other teams when he's in there and it doesn't work. That has to just go away. But yeah, we're going to talk more about that. Thank you, Ryan Willie. Thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate it so very much. I don't know if a lot of part of Canada or Bret Hart would agree with you, but thank you, Ryan Willie. Appreciate it so much. Mr. Hoosier, Ricky Tungate, Greg, I'm glad you came on. I'm at work, and Indiana is on spring break so slow. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Mr. Tungate, Mr. Hoosier. I appreciate your incredible, generous super chat. Thank you for joining us once again. March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Okay. Again, if you've been living under a rock, maybe you don't know what happened yesterday, but this is a college football YouTube channel. We don't talk college basketball unless it affects other things in football. But yesterday, West Virginia got screwed. Absolutely screwed. And I don't understand it. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert at anything except that a regular hamburger is better than a cheeseburger. That is the only thing that I'm an expert on in life. Everything else, no. But again, you look at the metrics, and I don't quite understand how West Virginia was not selected in the 68-team tournament. Pete Thamel, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark. I was surprised and disappointed to see West Virginia not receive a bid to the NCAA tournament. In addition to their 6 quad 1 wins, the Mountaineers won 10 conference games in one of the toughest leagues in the conference. West Virginia deserves a spot, and fans across the country. The coach did an incredible job fighting adversity, winning big games. Regardless of this disappointing outcome, I'm incredibly proud of how they represent the Big 12 all season long. And then we've got the governor of West Virginia looking to sue the NCAA. They're looking for collusion. Again, I can understand the anger. I can understand the outrage. I'm outraged. And if it was Minnesota, I would be screaming. 6 quad wins. You did not lose any quad 3 or quad 4 games. North Carolina had one quad win, 1-12. Now North Carolina played a tougher non-conference schedule, but they didn't win any of those games except for one of them. So West Virginia, unfortunately, they played a bunch of cupcakes, so their net average wasn't as high as the other bubble teams. But then again, you got to look at what happened. 6 quad 1 wins. I don't get it. Now, some of you are saying, well, Greg, look, and I've heard John Goodman. Is it John Goodman? Or is that the act? Whoever that college basketball guy is. Saying, what are we doing complaining? What are we doing complaining when none of these bubble teams are going to win the national championship anyways? Well, sometimes these bubble teams go all the way to the Final Four, right? We've seen it. Boeheim, the Syracuse Orange, we've seen it over and over and over again. And we are going to have complaints in football, in basketball, in every sport except for hockey, because they have a pairwise. It's all computer operated when it comes to the NCAA Division I hockey men's and women's playoff selection. But in these other sports where you've got people with, subjective opinions and you're going to have controversy. And if you are out and you believe you should have been in, it is very natural to complain, to rally the troops, to say we got screwed. Absolutely. I don't know if a governor acting in the way he did today, I don't think that's going to amount to anything. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they find some evidence of collusion or whatever. And I understand it looks bad because Bubba Cunningham made money as an athletic director when his team got a bid into the dance. It looks bad. Now, North Carolina, there was a few years ago where North Carolina did not make the tournament. They were a bubble team, and Bubba Cunningham was part of the selection committee. I read that today as well. So, anyways, I believe that West Virginia absolutely got screwed. I don't think... Look, I used to follow those matrix. Everyone comes out with their algorithms where they figure out who's going to be in the dance and who just gets left out of the dance. And I used to follow it when there was something like 70 some matrices where you follow and you see where your team would average if there were a 12th seed and an 11th seed just out of the tournament. Now it's up to, there's one that keep tracks of 111 college basketball matrix, and West Virginia made it to the dance, all 111 different college football bracket matrix, and they were left out. For the very first time ever, a team got left out when there was total consensus from these third-party matrices. Wow. Yeah, so anyway, and so now the question is, I don't think this is going to go to anything, but why am I covering this on the college football Peek Around the Corner channel? I got a feeling that we're going to see more and more of politicians getting in front of cameras and talking about defending their university. West Virginia, they're out a few $1 million here, right? A lot of money. And you saw how much the SEC is going to make. 14 teams. What is it? Like $28 million first round? I don't know what it is. SEC is making a whole lot of money just with NCAA tourney credits. West Virginia is out of money here. And you saw the governor go to bat today and sue, or going to attempt to sue or look into this against the NCAA. Now we've got big issues coming up, right? We've got this college football playoff format in 2026 and beyond. We got the Big Ten and the SEC pushing for 4 automatic qualifiers. You've got Brett Yormark saying, what the hell? You're trying to take money away from us. You got Phillips saying the same thing. A report today from Chris Vanini, TCU athletic director, Mike Buddy on the college football playoffs. I feel you should earn your way into the tournament. If it's going to be an invitational, call it the College Football Invitational. The Big 12 athletic directors are adamant that it should be one auto bid max per league. That came out today. So we're not talking just about access. We're talking about hard, real dollars. What if there, and again, I brought this up over and over again, what if there is a third place ACC team that most of us will look at and say, yeah, they're one of the best they're better than that fourth place team in the SEC. They're better than that fourth place team in the Big Ten. Or if we look at a third place Big 12 team, what if it happens one year and the whole thing goes haywire because of these automatic, permanent, at least for whenever they make the change and for however long the change goes for, probably by the end of the college football playoff media contract 2031, the current one. But what if it all goes haywire? Do you think all these politicians are going to sit on the sidelines because their institution is going to be out money that should have went to them? But what about even a bigger story? What about college football, college basketball, conference realignment in the next wave? You're going to, we've already talked about it. This is going to be more political entanglement than we've ever seen. This next wave, whenever it happens, the potential of more political entanglement. If you've got a governor of West Virginia barking at the NCAA because West Virginia was on the outside of an at-large 68-team college basketball tournament, you've got bigger dollars circling around other issues. As you see, Chris Vanini, Big 12's pushing back, ACC pushing back. Holy smokes. So again, this is why I'm covering it here, college football peek around the corner. When the governor, it's a big story in college sports. The NCAA men's basketball tournament, for the first time, this is one of the most controversial selections. And I got nothing against North Carolina. I'm always praising North Carolina, the value of the school, right? But North Carolina, in my opinion, there is no way on God's green earth they should have been in the tournament before West Virginia. And boy, it is almost unanimous consensus on this. And how did it happen? I don't think there was a grand conspiracy. Again, I don't know how to frame this. It always seems when it comes to penalties granted to universities, there's the old joke. Oh my goodness, Virginia did something wrong. That means Cleveland State's going to get penalized. I just use Virginia as an example. You remember that joke that always goes around of if a school looks like they're going to get punished by the NCAA? Michigan, the in-person scouting, oh boy, Cleveland State better look out. It just seems that happens a lot. The pecking order the more, I don't know how to say it, the more elite program, perceived program, always seems to get the benefit of the doubt. And the smaller guy always seems to get kicked in the shins. Even a big brand like Florida State, an incredible, valuable football brand, got kicked in the shins because they went up against Alabama. You see this over and over and over again. I think that's what permeates through these decision makings when you get these big, powerful people in a room making decisions. It seems like the little guy is going to get left out more often than not. That's just my take. And the reason why I brought it up on this live show is because the governor spoke out, and I think we're going to have a whole lot of politicians speaking about a whole lot of different things, not just in the Congress when they're trying to figure out a possible carve-out antitrust issues. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about the college football playoffs and then realignment. Holy smokes. Okay. Who organized the basketball tournament? The NCAA. Florida State is a blue blood. I get it, but up against the SEC ESPN, Morris, up against that machine, you saw what happened. You saw what happened to your Seminoles. It's all relative. Who are you going up against? You were going against Bama. And you got screwed. RW, hey Greg, have you seen the video of the future of higher education by Michael Horn of Harvard Business School? Basically, 40% of universities could close or merge in the next 5 or 10 years. I have not seen that, but yeah, it is. Things are going to change drastically. I took a lot of time last year talking about the student apocalypse that is upon us. It's going to go like this. It has begun. And of course, I got people telling me, Greg, look at the student population right now. It looks pretty good in 2024. The student apocalypse starts in 25. You're going to see a percentage change. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. And it has to do with more than one reason. It doesn't have to do just with childbirth rates. It has to do with a lot of different things. Yes, I have not read that, but the scramble for students, it's going to be a big war out there. Big war. Morris is not a shot at Florida State. Not a shot at Florida State. Not a shot at Florida State at all. You're up against a machine. You got screwed. West Virginia got screwed, in my opinion. Let me know I'm wrong in the comments or with the phone calls later in the show. Okay. Before we get to this possible emerging spring football story, Colorado and Syracuse, which I find absolutely fascinating. Even if they don't get it done this year, could this be something in the future? I want to finally get to the James Madison story. The Daily News record, Shane Metlin, college athletics. James Madison wants to lead the Sun Belt in revenue sharing with athletes. This is about a week old. I apologize to everybody. I keep talking about how we're going to talk about James Madison. And I keep putting it off. I had a James Madison person DMing me. I apologize to him. I apologize to everybody. We had so many breaking stories. If the settlement of the House versus NCAA federal court is approved as anticipated, James Madison will join the other Division I schools in paying athletes via revenue sharing. James Madison AD Matt Rohn told the Daily News Record exactly how much money that means. Rohn wasn't not quite ready to share, but Rohn said, as he discusses the change in landscape of college sports with peers in the Sun Belt Conference as well as across the country, he expects the Duke's athlete payroll to be among the highest in the group of 5 conferences. Among the highest. Is it the highest in the Sun Belt? Likely. We do know that we want to share revenue with our student athletes, Rohn said. I think we've taken the mindset that can enhance their scholarship. It's additive. We have talked a lot about doing that in exchange for something. Sharing revenue in exchange for our students being involved in the revenue generating activities, like actually going out in the community, right? Either in support of the institution or in support of the department. If the settlement is approved, it would create a cap of around $20 million for the revenue sharing at the highest level. Many power conference schools with massive media rights deals of $30 million have said they plan to spend at or near the max. James Madison athletic budget last year was around $76 million, with less than $3 million of that coming from the conference distribution. The Sun Belt's not the AAC, which we're going to get to in a moment. The Sun Belt is not going to be the new Pac-12 or the Mountain West Conference. It is below them in revenue. It is above the MAC. It's above Conference USA. But it is below the other two current G5 conferences and going to be below the other 3 G6 conferences when the Pac-12 comes to light. The Sun Belt has a deal with ESPN believed to be worth around $2 million per school. Though few group of 5 and mid-major schools have formally announced their entire revenue sharing plan, some outlets have estimated the highest spending group of 5 schools may be in the $5 to $7 million range. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. The highest spending group of 5 could be somewhere between $5 million and $7 million. Now, I wonder about Oregon State, Washington State. They got some cash infusion during the Pac-12 divorce. I'm thinking they might be a little bit higher than that. Let me know in the comments section or with your phone calls. The athletic director, Rohn, says he wants James Madison to be at the top of the Sun Belt in terms of revenue sharing and to compete with some of the most successful group of 5 football programs such as Boise State, Tulane, and Memphis with the goal of earning a spot in the college football playoff. The specific number is not yet finalized because of the university processes, Rohn said. But we know what those benchmarks are. We want to make sure we are leading the league with respect to that. That comes from our ability to forecast what our self-generated revenues will be. Though James Madison budget is large compared to most group of 5 departments, $55 million of that comes via student fees. Those fees cannot be used toward revenue sharing with athletes. That is against the settlement rules. That is against what you cannot be bringing in student fees to pay your revenue share. That is going to be looked at carefully, supposedly, by the enforcement arm of this new body that's going to control everything, supposedly. For coaches Adding what amounts to player salaries into the mix adds another element to preparing for next season. James Madison football coach Bob Chesney said anticipation of the House settlement could create a rush to secure the roster in the coming months. That new fiscal year starts a whole different set of obligations with this entire university. That is July 1st, everybody. The new fiscal year is July 1st. Chesney said, I think for us, we have our eye on that, exactly how we're going to divvy things up and what we intended to do. Again, we just got to see who's still around July 1st. There it is. There's the date. And make sure that we are in position and prepared to make sure that it all works out. But that is a whole other deal. We have to develop a whole recruiting, retention, player personnel, GM, chief of staff type roles to make sure that we understand how that has all got to work out. It's not just, hey, we just have this money and good luck. There's a whole lot of planning going on behind the scenes. Last year, James Madison generated about $10 million via ticket sales and donations. Additionally, the Dukes brought in around $8 million from the conference distribution being played to play football and basketball road games against power conference opponents and other game day revenue streams such as parking and concessions. Roan was hired at James Madison after having success generating more corporate sponsorships at Eastern Kentucky and finding more revenue generating sources has been perhaps the administration's top priority since he came to Harrisonburg last spring. Many schools have suggested they intend to distribute revenue among athletes somewhat proportional to how it is generated. In many cases, that means around 75% going to football players, 15% men's basketball, 5% women's basketball, 5% to the rest of the sports. That's in line with how damages were awarded to former college athletes in the proposed settlement. Rowan didn't commit to that exact range for James Madison, but suggested it could be similar and that revenue-generating activities would prompt payments for football and basketball players that could be as simple as playing in games where tickets were sold. For other sports such as baseball, softball, volleyball, soccer, lacrosse, where admissions is free, players may be asked to participate in events that help generate funds for the school. Those could range from athletic boosters, gatherings to enrollment drives for the university itself. Maybe this is a little bit unique for us, Rowan said, but maybe kind of developing what I would call an ambassadorship program. So the student athletes who do benefit from new rev share moving forward, we have them much more involved, whether it's actively trying to secure donations or ticket sales and picking up the phone, but even outside of athletics is having our student athletes much more involved. And finally, in the article, for James Madison, the goal remains national success across the board in all sports. We want to be the best in the group of five, Rowan said. That's in every sport. We're not in an autonomous four conference. So we don't have those revenues that come with that. But for us, we absolutely want to be best in class. We want to benchmark ourselves with the Sun Belt peers, but also peers inside the American, inside the Mountain West, and the new Pac-12 and the MAC. I'm trying to find out whatever I can from whoever I can to find out what those numbers are. A couple of things. One, James Madison, now look, they want to be the top spenders in the rev share in the Sun Belt Conference. As far as I know, and this could change, but as far as I know, that might be difficult to find out. What you do in rev share, how much you spend in rev share to your athletes, has to be communicated to, I don't know if it's Deloitte or another body. I don't know who's going to look at this, but there's going to be a body of people looking to make sure that you don't go over the rev share, that you don't go over the cap, you don't go over 20.5 million. But James Madison, who's not going to approach 20.5 million in rev share, is going to have to report the rev share numbers. But I don't think that's going to be public. I don't think James Madison is going to know what the other Sunbelt schools are paying. I don't think James Madison is going to have a clue what Texas State Bobcats are paying in rev share. They're going to try to find out. They want to be the top dogs. But again, we've got this cloak and dagger going on between schools. They don't know. For most of the Power Four conference programs, they're going to assume that the other schools in their conferences are going to be doing the 20.5 rev share, 20.5 million. But in these other conferences, in the G5, G6 conferences, they don't know what their opponents are putting out. Now, maybe this all becomes public at some point, but from my understanding, none of this is public. And so the James Madison athletic director is going, I'm doing all I can, talking to all I can. I got to figure it out. I'm going to try to figure it out. That we have to make sure that we are number one in the Sun Belt when it comes to distribution of benefits towards our athletes. Now, maybe they can get some of that information from agents, but boy, those agents are probably going to lie to you, right? Another thing. This is common knowledge. Common knowledge, the chatter behind the curtain. James Madison is not long for the Sun Belt in a couple of different ways. And I don't want to spend too much time on a rabbit hole that I don't have to go down to. But the chatter behind the curtain, if the ACC loses a couple of the big programs, let's say the ACC, they're probably going to lose some. Some AACs go to a South Florida, a Memphis, a Tulane, whatever. The candidates that we would all, these schools, some of them are going to probably pop into the ACC. If the ACC survives, and I think they will in some form or fashion, right? James Madison is got to be one or two of the top candidates to backfill in the AAC, without a doubt. And this has been known for a while. Now, James Madison is one of the newest FBS programs, universities. They weren't FBS for, I can't remember what year, it wasn't too long ago. But James Madison has the AAC written all over it. If you look at the AAC conference, you can see how they would be enticed with a James Madison. You see how the AAC, they did not take a Virginia school in Liberty. They've got themselves East Carolina. James Madison would fit academically, market, and a commitment to athletics. James Madison is one of those G5 programs, G6 programs, that is pretty chalk when it comes to their next realignment. James Madison, AAC. If you talk to I've had the pleasure to be able to talk with people, and that is the complete consensus, the chatter behind the curtain. James Madison is not long for the Sun Belt. They'd much rather be in the Sun Belt than Conference USA, of course the MAC. But is the AAC that is a school that could be a backfill for the AAC, along with Old Dominion. But James Madison got to be number one. That is what I've been wanting to talk about when it comes to James Madison for the last week. We've had to put it off the story because of all this breaking news, but I wanted to make sure we talked about James Madison. Harrisburg, yes, we talked about that. Yep. Okay, let's get into this. Colorado, Syracuse, spring football game. I want to get to your comments, and I'm going to get to your phone calls here in the next 5 to 10 minutes. I want you to tell me, do you think this could possibly happen? And if it did, could it reignite? Could it ignite? Could it ignite a new era in spring football for college football? It was reported everywhere earlier today. On 3, Deion Sanders is trying to face another team for Colorado spring game on ESPN2 in April. Deion Sanders, I would like to practice against someone for a few days. Then you have the spring game, and I think the public will be satisfied with that tremendously. Now, this is a little bit of a contradiction, right? On 3 says Deion Sanders is trying to face another team for the spring game. Deion Sanders mentioned that, but he also mentioned, I would like to practice against somebody for a couple of days. Then you have the spring game. It wasn't quite clear if Deion meant Colorado versus a team in a spring football game. It might have been just for practices, and then Colorado does its spring football game. But whatever, right? Whatever. I mean, either way, it would be transformative. It would be ushering in a new era in spring football for college football. Now we get a later report. Get this. Fran Brown, the head coach of Syracuse. Deion Sanders, we will come to Boulder for 3 days. Target, orange, and a prayer sign. What does that mean? Does that mean that Deion Sanders and Fran Brown have already communicated? They've already this train is down the track some? They're trying to get a rule. Remember, the rules say that you cannot practice against another program during spring football. So that rule would have to change here pretty soon. I believe that's the rule, ladies and gentlemen. I do not have a picture, a slide, a link to provide, but I believe that is a rule. But if that gets changed, or do you think Fran Brown is just saying, hey, we're ready, we can do this? Or was there, now, Deion Sanders said, I've been trying to get this thing together to face another team. So he did say he's been working on it. And Fran Brown communicated this and no one else has. So, what do you think? Colorado, Syracuse, in a spring football game? Fran Brown says we can be there for 3 days. That's pretty specific. We can be there for 3 days. Let's look at it again. Fran Brown, we will come to Boulder for 3 days. Pretty specific. It's almost like they've talked, right? It's almost like they've hammered down the dates. And then you got Deion Sanders, who said we'll practice a couple days and then do a spring game. Does that mean they're going to practice for a couple days between Colorado and Syracuse and then have the spring game on ESPN2, Colorado and Syracuse? Is that what we're looking at here? What do you think? Let me know. I'm going to open up the phone lines in about 2 minutes. Can they actually pull this off? Or is it just two coaches talking? They can't get the rule change. But if they do pull this off, do you think that this is going to be something that we see next year in spring football? I would absolutely love it. You guys know the last couple of spring, I've done a watch party. I've done spring watch parties. I did USC 3 years ago on this channel. I did Colorado 2 years ago on this channel. Last year I did North Carolina State, and unfortunately for the Wolfpack, I fell in love with the Wolfpack during that spring football game. I do watch parties. That's how crazy we are here at Peek Around the Corner. That's how crazy you are. That's how sickos you are for coming on this channel and watching this spring football with me. I would absolutely love it. Love it. I want this to happen. That's why I'm doing a show on this right now. But before we get to your phone calls, let's be honest. This is kind of going against the grain, right? Of everything else that's happened, these coaches don't want anybody to watch us, don't want anybody to see us, don't want anybody to poach us. But then again, next year, if you have player contracts, and if your player gets poached, there might be the possibility you get some compensation coming back to you. I don't know. Let's open up the phone lines. Let me know what you're thinking. Talk anything about college football your heart desires. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. We had to talk about this. Fran Brown answers Deion Sanders. We will come to Boulder for 3 days. Emoji target, emoji orange, emoji prayer. Are they going to get it done? Syracuse, and Colorado. And if they get it done, are you going to be happy? You don't care? Let me know. Phone lines are wide open. The phone lines are wide open. Ah, boy.
From
Nitwit, Penn State. Thanks for calling, my man. I appreciate it. The floor is yours.
This is a great topic, Greg. This has been a mystery to me ever since I started watching college football. I don't understand. At every level, other than the college football level, even in high school, you can go scrimmage or practice against, at least here in our state. We used to go to camps when I played football. You would go and play 3 other different teams, practice against them in July before it started. So I think this is a great idea. I mean, it's an opportunity. And the thing is, everybody worries about, your star players, you're going to get them hurt and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what the spring game is going to be about. You know what these games are. It's the second stringers and the third stringers. They get in. They get a chance to show how they improved They get evaluated. You might play a series. I mean, like, this is common stuff. I mean, you did this in high school. Your starters would get in, you'd play a 10-play series, and then you would play, your second string, third string. So I'm excited for it. I think this is a great idea. I'd love to see Penn State or, a Boston college come in and maybe, you'd have media coverage of the scrimmages. You get to see players going into drills one-on-one against, other teams and other players. I mean, what do you think about this for Minnesota? Wouldn't it be great to be able to cover that?
Yeah, it would. Well, I would be in heaven. It's fascinating because PJ Fleck, when he first came to Minnesota, he was so serious about spring football. The Minnesota Golden Gophers, the Big Ten Network, loved doing the Minnesota games, spring football games, because Minnesota played it real time. It was a running clock, but it was tackling, 4 quarters. They kept the score. It was like real football, as close as real football as you can be. The first year, he even had the quarterbacks they were free to get tackled. But then he put the touch rule in for the quarterbacks after the first year. But then Minnesota, I think the last 6 years, have had terrible weather. We get snow in the second week of April every single bleeping year. We get that one snowstorm second week of April that no one else gets, and it screws us up. So we've had to move it into the indoor facility, which the indoor facility is a regulated football field, a regulated end zones. It's so high you can punt it, but there isn't much room for any of the fans. It's terrible for the Big Ten Network cameras. You get bad camera angles. Year after year after year, the Gophers had to cancel or move their game in to the indoor facility. Last year, PJ Fleck came out and said, we're not even going to do it. We're not going to do a spring football game. Plus, he did mention players getting poached. Minnesota has had a lot of programs come on in and just flat out just whatever. I don't want to go down that road right now, but so he's been pretty pissed about that. So he said no spring football game last year and no spring football game this year. So it's interesting because PJ was a serious spring football guy, but because of the weather and because of poaching, he's turned against it. I'm wondering though if the players are under play contracts, right? If anybody takes a Gopher player and he's under contract, Minnesota would get compensation back, right? If that becomes part of the landscape, and if Minnesota can travel, like go somewhere else, get out of Minnesota in April, and go somewhere a little bit warmer, go to Iowa State, go to Kansas State. I think PJ Fleck might. I think he might do it. Go ahead, sir.
Well, actually, it opens up the opportunity. You could have maybe 4 teams go somewhere and scrimmage each other. I've done that. Like, we had a New Jersey team come up from New Jersey to scrimmage or, to practice with. Instead of, hitting the sled, you'd do one-on-ones. You would do, formations and blocking. And I just think if you look at the time frames that are going to come up, and I think they're going to do away with the winter transfer portal time frame. So think about how important the spring transfer portal is going to be. Mm-hmm. So you're not helping your players out if you're hiding them and you're not showing them in a game. Are you going to be part of this team or not? So you need a big event to showcase what you can do, how to evaluate your players against other competition, and you can have an honest conversation. I have to say, James Franklin has done this very well during this situation about having honest conversations with players and saying, hey, let's help you through this transition. You know, he did that with the quarterback this year, the second string quarterback.
Yeah.
Said, hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's help you on your way. Let's get you out of here. And thanks for your contribution to Penn State. You'll always be a Penn Stater, but, you know, we think, you know, you need to move on, and we're going to help you do that. I'm not sure, like, why this spring situation would help with that spring transfer portal. And I think that's really should be the only time you should be able to transfer. After that spring game, you're not where you're at. That spring practice, you don't feel comfortable with the team. That's when you should have your spring transfer portal. That's when you should be able to go into the transfer portal and say, look, you know what? And then you can go to another team and you have some practices before the start of the season. So I think this would be great. Like I said, I've been for this for years. It is not, as somebody that played football, it is not fun during a spring or even, I mean, if you think about high school football around here starts in July. So, I mean, it's really tiring going against the same people all the time. I think you'll infuse some excitement. You can have some fan experiences. You know, other teams can team up and you can make it a trip somewhere. You know what I mean? Like maybe, you know, like 4 teams get together and say, hey, we're going to go do this at, you know, some warmer climate, like you said. You know, the media can be there covering it. You'd have, you know, one-on-one drills that you can cover. You have, you know, different practicing drills that you can, you know, your D-backs and receivers can go together. You could do 7-on-7. Just a lot of different opportunities in player development. And that's where we're losing, Greg.
Yeah.
We're losing player development because we have this idea that we're just going to replace somebody in this convoluted transfer portal. Like, you just – that's not going to happen. You have – the development of your players and their commitment to your culture and to the team is still important. This isn't like basketball. You're not going to be able to bring in 7 players and just be like, oh, here, we're going to play basketball and make the tournament and all that kind of stuff. Football is a totally different animal, and we have to get back to player development. You know, you got to make a commitment. I think people hiding players and, like, you know, saying we're not having a spring game and all that kind of stuff, like, that's just, to me, that's nonsense. I really hope, and like, won't they just do it, Greg? What is the NCAA going to do? Are you literally just going to suspend Syracuse and Colorado for the rest of the year? Just do it.
Why?
Just do it. Just say, sorry, NCAA, Syracuse is coming, and we're going to have live practices against them, and we don't care what you say.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that, but I think,
you know what I'm saying, Greg? Like, it takes something like that to just be like, well, you know what? Sorry, this is what we're going to do because this is the best for our team and our institution. This is what we're going to do, and you seriously going to? What are you going to do, NCAA? You're not going to allow it? What are you going to do? Fine people? Just won't pay the fine. I mean, this is where the NCAA is right now. You know what I'm saying, Greg? Like, really? I mean, you still haven't figured out the Michigan thing yet. It's been 2.5 years. What are you doing? I mean, I know this.
They don't run. They don't really run college football, but they do have rules still when it comes to sportsmanship and they regulate players' activities. So there's an old rule in the book about not having players travel to go somewhere else to play against another team in football. And the rule is in the books. I don't think the rule is going to be the problem. I think they can get rid of that rule pretty quickly, real quick.
I think so too. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the issue. So.
All right, Greg. Hey, thanks a lot for taking my call.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call.
Yeah,
Nitwit, fantastic. Thank you, sir. Tom K, Coach Brown, and Coach Prime are actually really exciting coaches evaluating programs. Tom K also mentioned that, they played Brown and Prime played their bowl game seriously. They went out and they played it. They didn't hold anything back, and the best players played, and so maybe there is a connection. Maybe they'll get it done.
From
Rock and Rant.
Rock and Rant, can you just hold on for a moment, please?
Sure.
I want to get to Go Black 45 Super Chat. This is a great idea to have. Treat it like a bowl week. You could have sponsorship, getting your brand with college football for $500,000 instead of a spot for the college football playoff. Again, the players, maybe they all can get a nice little check out of this besides what they would normally get through the month of April, depending on their Alston check and their whatever else they're getting. Going forward, your revenue share check, maybe they get a little bit more money. If it's a televised spring practice game, scrimmage. Now, I before we get to Rock and Rant, I just Minnesota, for example. I know we're not the only program out there, but we actually have to. There's a lot of guys that have to go into the portal. We have way too many guys. Not a whole lot of guys left after the first portal. We brought in a lot of guys, so. You're going to be hearing during the spring game or before spring game, or we're not going to have a spring football game. A little bit after spring practice is over, there's going to be a whole bunch of gophers hitting the portal because we got to get our numbers down, and we got way too many guys, and I can't believe we're the only program with that issue. Rock and Rant, Mr. Miami Hurricane, thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
For sure, and between yesterday's show for you and today, a lot of interesting but very different topics to go over. So
yes,
I tried to get in yesterday, but you guys had wall-to-wall calls after your monologue there. So
yes.
I want to touch on a couple things there and then focus on all the stuff from today.
Go ahead. The floor is yours, my friend.
So the first thing, I just wanted to touch on, you talked about the evaluations yesterday for everybody, and you pulled up, I don't remember if it was listed, I think it's CNBC.
Yeah.
The thing I think is interesting there is if you take a few of the schools, whether they be Big 12 or ACC schools, and you just do a gameplay of, well, if they were in this conference, if they were already in the Big 10, how much would their deal be? Where would they sit on that ranking list?
They'd sit high.
Big 10 deal.
Yes.
Right? So it's just the way you truly look at that is if they're valuing their media deal 3 or 4x in their overall valuation, take the difference between the two and see where they sit, and you wind up getting a few more ACC schools into the top 25
yes.
overall, or Stanford going up, which is one of the more interesting ones. But also a couple of Big 12 schools, and then you look at them versus schools that are already existing. Not that any school, I don't believe Northwestern's getting thrown out or anything like that, but it is just interesting to see what schools sit where when you use that true, a sort of an adjusted model that you showed on the screen yesterday.
Yes, you're correct. And I should have either have said it, maybe I didn't say it at all, or should have been more clear. But, the conference affiliation was part of the metrics that this group of people used. And I think it's probably a little bit of a drag on ACC and Big 12 schools, not just because of the media market, but not because of the media payout, but maybe other intangibles, right?
Yes,
So
sure.
it's a drag. So yes, if you slot them into the SEC or the Big Ten, they're jumping up in the rankings. Yep, I agree with you, sir.
And then you touched on, and we agree to a large degree, I think, on the whole contracts and schools and how somehow it's getting ultimately worked out, right? And that there's got to be some rules in place.
Yeah.
The thing that I kind of vociferously, I don't know if I disagree, but maybe I just disagreed with what I thought I was hearing yesterday, is the terms that are in those articles are so beyond ridiculously the term is unconscionability, where if you had some player who had bad representation and some of those terms were in a contract and they went to court, doesn't matter that they signed it. Some of those are so extremely one-sided that I think those terms would be out. Now, any boilerplate contract that the conference is going to come up with or a school is going to, of course, be like in their favor. But to the degree that some of those terms exist, like, hey, you can forfeit half of your thing even if you were on the roster for the last 10 months and just completed the entire season, including the college football playoff, because now you're going in the portal, even though you've done 10 months worth of work, we're going to take 50% away. That's just absolutely insane. So I really don't want to hear any of the conferences ever talk about how they care about student athletes again if they're trying to put those kind of things into the contract. So I agree with you in theory, but some of the things in there are ridiculous in my opinion. So I don't know what your take on some of the.
I'm sure I would mostly or entirely agree with you if we both sat and looked at the contracts. I'm just, you know me. I have to. First of all, before we go on any further, Rock and Rant, I apologize. The little general, the one who rules with an iron fist, is in the chat room. The wife, Mireya Hernandez Garcia Flugar, she says, hello, please say hi to my amigos de Orzaba. I'm sorry I got that name wrong. I'm going to say hi to your the amigos, the familia back in, I believe, I don't know where Mireya is. I think she's in Veracruz. I think she's up in a mountain, a big old mountain for one more day before she comes back down that mountain. Mireya says, hello. Hello, Mireya. Hello to your amigos. Hopefully you can see me in Mexico there. Hi. Thank you for coming on in. Honey, I miss you. You're going to be home next week. And I'm going to have the house clean before you get home. How about them apples? Back to Rock and Rant. I think you and I probably would agree more than we disagree on it. I've got to be hated on both sides. So I gotta, but go ahead.
It's a good place to be. You know, being boring is the worst part, right? So you don't want to be boring. So better to have vitriol than to have people be agnostic about you.
Yes.
Then in terms of the West Virginia situation, there's always a team, the first four out and all that other stuff. But I think it's just the way I kind of imagine is the optics are so bad that this is like, what if Greg Byrne had been the head of the college football playoff committee and he's the athletic director of Alabama instead of Ward Manuel, and he was recused. I think it's really likely that because he was hanging out with everybody, that somehow just by presence, Alabama's in versus SMU. And I think that's what ultimately is making everybody up in arms about it, let alone the bracketology saying 111 out of 111 people had West Virginia in and only 27 had North Carolina. But the optics, and I just think this is the multiverse world of what would have happened if it would have been Alabama AD's time to be in charge of the college football playoff selection committee versus Ward and Manuel's. And I think we might have seen SMU be the West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where a lot of that controversy comes.
Yeah.
But then the last thing, the whole thing with Colorado and potentially Syracuse, I'd love it if it happens. I think it's really kind of like, it's understandable, but it's sort of weird. Like if you're a member of the PATC community and you ask us for more, become members, right? Or to get up into chat and make sure your comments get seen, you give more, right? You give exposure to your talk, you give additional content. College football and colleges right now are essentially doing the opposite. Hey, we need more money from you. We need more money now to fund our NIL. We're going to give you a fee on top of your other fee that we already had for you to get priority seating for your season ticket renewal or to sit in this section. But in turn for that, we're going to give you less. You want to go see a college spring game? Nah, we're not going to do that. You want to like come to practice? No, can't do that. But please give us more money. So I think the concept, I mean, that's just a ridiculous fact. Like nowhere else do you give more and get less than I can think of anywhere other than just getting completely conned.
Yeah. No, you bring up a great point. And of course, it probably has a lot to do with, you know, all these coaches, they've lost somebody, right? They've gotten poached and they're like, I don't like it. And I'm like Mike Norvell, he's not even having, I think he's having one practice open for the press. Everything else is, so, yeah.
Right, but do you think let's be real, do you think that's what's really going to be the difference versus the cell phone footage that any player can take and their agent can get, or they're in, you know, doing film study? Are they going to have like armed guards over players doing film study after practice to make sure that they don't record their highlights to then send to their agent so their agent can go get it somewhere? Like, it's completely ridiculous. So, you know, I get why they're doing it in principle, but I don't really, what's going to change? Okay, you guys don't watch spring practice anymore. Don't see what we did wrong. Only do it if your coach is there.
Yeah.
Give us your phone before you walk into the theater and don't record the concert. Like, that's just not realistic either.
Yeah. Good point.
You know, half these guys get iPads with their videos to go study, right? Like, that's like a normal thing. So the last part would be, like, if Colorado and Syracuse did something, I think you can do a lot with it. You don't worry about the injuries. Maybe you get a sponsor. Maybe you do something where, you know, the whole Iowa thing, the wave, maybe there's a charity aspect to it along with the sponsor that, like, instead of just taking away from fans in the community, you give back. It would be really interesting to see if Deion pushed the limits right now and try to get a waiver really fast and see if the NCAA would react to it, or would everybody just push back because they just want to be old school in a world where all the old school is dying pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope it happens. I don't think it will because that would be too smart.
Yeah, I hope it happens too. As a college football fan, I hope it happens. All right, man. Rock and Rant, I appreciate it, sir.
Have a good one, man.
Yeah, great call once again. Mr. Hurricane, Rock and Rant. Almighty Finn, I wish Greg did basketball too. Hold on.
Call from
Steele Austin.
Steele Austin, can you hold on for a moment, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Almighty Finn, I wish Greg did basketball too. I would love to hear his take on why the Big Ten hasn't won a natty since 2000 on the court. I tell you, I mean, how many Big Ten teams have made it to the Final Four, Final Eight championship game? There's been tons of them. Why they don't win, I have no idea. I guess they're just not good enough. But I mean, it isn't like they don't make it to the Final Four. They've had a lot of representation. They've had a lot of wins. They don't win it. They do not win it. It reminds me of my Minnesota Golden Gophers in the hockey tournament. They're always there. They're always winning. They always go far, but they don't quite get it done. I don't have the answers, Almighty Finn. I do not have the answer. Maria Hernandez Garcia says, hey, anyone knows Pico de Orizaba, Mexico? Luis Vasquez says, hola, saludos, days. I'm sorry, I cannot. Orizab, I'm not saying that correct. I apologize to my wife and everybody else. Greg Lewis is being an amazing host. His family cooked Pozzoli for us. It's being fabulous. I got it. You showed me a video yesterday. Lewis, thank you so much for making pozole, the great soup. I love it when it's verde, not so much rojo. I love the verde broth, not so much the rojo, the red broth. White corn, a little bit of pork, shaved off, slightly shaved radish, lettuce, of course, some pepper in there. Beautiful soup. Thank you, Lewis, for taking care of my wife, and my mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law, and my sister-in-law. Thank you, Lewis, for taking care of my family so very much. Okay, I'm sorry, caller. Go ahead. The floor is yours, Mr. Steele.
Thanks, Greg. Hey, just a comment. What one of the prior callers had said about spring games, and I totally agree. They're not for the starters. It's all about development and getting the second, third, fourth string guys reps and being able to evaluate them and scrimmage and take a step forward in their development. And with that being said, I mean, the thing that's always bothered me about the regular season is I absolutely hate when power teams are scheduling FCS games. It's the most frustrating thing, especially as a fan, if you have season tickets, to have to go and waste one of your home games on an FCS opponent. And the SEC, I mean, Alabama, gosh, they were notorious for sometimes getting away with scheduling almost 2 FCS opponents a year.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. And the thing that's never made sense to me, you say, hey, no FCS opponents. Power teams should not play FCS opponents. And then you always will get somebody that raises their hand and says and cries to the FCS schools and says, yeah, but they depend on that. If they don't get those games, they don't get their check, and they can't provide these opportunities to these student athletes. And so, therefore, it's our responsibility as power programs to fund these schools and give them that opportunity. And to that, I just say, why don't we use the spring games for that? It's a win-win. Play the FCS teams in spring when it doesn't matter. It gives your team an opportunity to scrimmage and do all the things they need to against an opponent where they're not having to just beat up on each other, for yet another practice to give them, new guys to scrimmage against. And then it also provides the FCS school with a check that they need. And it's in my mind, it's a win-win all the way around. But I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I've always liked the spring game going against an opponent and not so much going against an FCS, but going against a G5 school. Because the FCS programs just aren't going to be up, and they don't do what the others, I think there's just too much of a difference there. But now in this era of money and getting paid and making sure that the players are being compensated for the labor they put into it, and exposure and sponsorship and this rev share. I mean, it's becoming big business. I think the idea of a spring game with two Power 4 conference teams going against each other, I think that's probably where we have to go for this thing to actually take off. So essentially, I agree with what you said. I've agreed with, and I've wanted that for years. But now I think we're at the point where I think it would have to be a couple Power 4 conference teams playing. But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the point of view. If I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that the only way it will happen is if there's real money involved.
I'm not. I don't really have that. I don't have that strong opinion on that. I think it would help for it to happen if there was real money behind it, but I don't know.
Gotcha.
I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I guess all I'm trying to say is that I would my main thing is that I wish they would stop playing these FCS games in the regular season. Like, I don't want to see one of the 12 games against a body bag game, a 70-0 cupcake victory for a team where they don't even, their starters are out before halftime and they don't even break a sweat. It's just, to me, it's just a waste of entertainment and a waste of game. And if they're going to do that, I would much rather see them move that game to spring if at all possible, just to get it off the regular season. But to your point, if that's not even possible, then I would just say, gosh, still don't schedule FCS opponents during the regular season. Let the G5 teams play the FCS opponent and let the power teams play a G5 opponent. And, if what you're saying is possible, maybe schedule a G5 and during the scrimmage for the spring game. But I don't know. That's all I wanted to say.
Yep.
But,
nope. Good point, my man. Beautiful
appreciate
call.
the airtime, Greg. I'll let someone else call in.
Thank you, Steele. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Talk to you later.
A couple of things. One is 5 gifted memberships to Joe Applewhite, Jason 1, Craig, Rumor, Nitwit, the Architect. When you get an opportunity, go check out our library. Go check out our early P Cloak and Dagger episodes for members only. All of you, the names I just read off, you are officially knighted Cloak and Dagger. We do have a little bit of a breaking news. Breaking news. Deion Sanders has made a post on X. 12 minutes ago. Love ya, my brother. Coach Fran Brown is my dog. And I think there is 7 exclamation points off a post of Nikki Edwards saying that Fran Brown showing interest in coming to Boulder for the spring game. Coach Prime, makes a comment. Love you, my brother. Coach Fran Brown. Mr. Fran Brown is my dog. So, Nikki Edwards made a post about Fran Brown having interest in doing a couple practices, probably possibly a spring game. Nikki Edwards is the Buffalo beat writer under Rivals, editor for Yahoo Sports. Nikki Edwards from Boulder, Colorado, and then Deion Sanders subtweets it and puts it out there. What do you guys think? Is it going to happen? Is it a possibility? 6. Was it 6? My old eyes saw 7. Pretty good stuff. Okay, I think we're going to shut it down. This was a fun live show. We've been on the air for an hour and a half, 1.5 hours. We're just talking a little bit about Syracuse and Colorado. Could they be doing a couple practices? Possible spring game on ESPN2? We shall find out. I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's been a fun live show, a shorter one than usual. It's going to be a busy week. Possible dramatic week. So college football peek around the corner. Wanted to have some fun talking about the possibility of Fran Brown and Deion Sanders meeting in midfield in Boulder, Colorado during a spring football game. I think most people in the PATC family have I think they're interested. I think they are interested in this possibility. Ryan Willie, Ricky Tungate, Gold Black 45. I want to thank you for your generosity. I do appreciate it so much. The couple good phone calls, great phone calls that we received. I want to thank you all for joining us. Please, before you leave, smash the like button if you have liked our content today. If you have not liked our content, if you think we have wasted your time talking about a possible spring football game between Colorado and Syracuse, hit the thumbs down button. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel, open up those notifications. We could come on live at any time here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, 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 you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.